On today's show, football is back, baby, as Baker Mayfield and the Bucs look to take down the Falcons as they hope to win their fifth consecutive NFC South title. Do they have what it takes? I'll discuss next on this edition of the Bucs Report. Down, set. Well, hello and welcome into this edition of the Bucs Report, part of the Bucs Report podcast network. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the Bucs Report online. It's at bucsreport.com. And the best way that you can help grow this show is to subscribe or follow the Bucs Report on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you find your podcast. Give it a 5-star rating, leave some comments, and tell your friends. I sure would appreciate it. The Bucs Report podcast is also simulcast on the Bucs Minutecast. So let's dive into it. As Bucs football is getting ready to kick off on Sunday, it's going to be Baker Mayfield and the Bucs as they look to take on the Atlanta Falcons. And right away, optimism. If you're not hyped right now for the start of the football season, well, you better check your pulse, as this is the most exciting time of the year. And the Bucs looking to do big things, right? Win the NFC South for the fifth straight season, doing the unthinkable thing. And up to recently, this team didn't get any love. Like, the Bucs were good and, they got lucky, but it's not sustainable. And now even the critics are starting to come around in the Bucs' favor. And I think that the Buccaneers, they thrive in the environment of the underdog. So let's the Bucs feel like they don't have a chance of winning it this season and see this team thrive. And right out of the gate, they are facing some pretty big setbacks. We know Tristan Wirfs is out. We know Chris Godwin, Jalen McMillan, Rachaad White, that they already have some pieces stacked against them, that this team is going to have to dig deep if they, in fact, want to do the unthinkable thing and win their fifth straight NFC South title. So let's dive into it. What's the latest with your favorite team and mine, the Buccaneers? To set the stage here, the Bucs, well, the Bucs are back Sunday afternoon. They're going to be playing at the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta and on Fox if you're not able to attend locally there. And that there is a lot at stake. You know that the Falcons, I think, at least on paper, are going to try to take a step forward with their young new quarterback and Penix Jr. And, if you remember last season, the Buccaneers had a hard time against the Falcons. So I think that this is going to be a good litmus test. This is going to be a good measuring stick for this team to see ultimately what they have in the tank. The questions is Baker Mayfield not getting any preseason snaps. Was that the right thing? If we listen to a lot of the other podcasts and some of the insiders, you listen to Rick Stroud, he kind of flip-flopped, and he said in the last half or his last take there, that he wished that Baker Mayfield would have got some reps in. And James Yarko on Locked On Bucs said the same thing, that he thought that was a disservice to Baker Mayfield not getting any preseason reps. But if you ask me, and I'm kind of out on an island here, I like it. I like the fact that we didn't put Baker at risk. He was able to get some work in those joint practices. So I think an ideal situation. And if you kind of want to see that exemplified, take a look at Jalen McMillan getting injured in a game that held little significance. But that's rather here nor there. They're kicking off the 2025 season, and now Tampa Bay is chasing history here, looking for their 5th straight NFC crown. Wouldn't that be something if they're able to do it? And, a really early take as I record this in early September is, are there certain things that could derail it? Of course. If Baker Mayfield got injured and it's Teddy in there, I think that if Bridgewater could win you a game or two, that would be huge. But we're hoping it doesn't come to that. And, if they're able to do it, that would be quite something. That's a run only New Orleans has flirted with in this division, winning 4 in a row in 17 through 2020. So that'd be quite something. But the twist is here, last year, the Falcons actually swept the Buccaneers head-to-head. Yeah, both games. So as much as the Bucs finished on top, Atlanta proved they could go toe-to-toe. So expect for it to be live in the first game of the regular season. And, the NFL season is a short season. And there's not a whole lot of opportunity, or you can't risk going through a losing streak. So the Buccaneers need to hit the Falcons with both barrels. And that's how they're going to have to approach every game, as I think that some of the teams around the NFC South are going to be taking a step forward. The Buccaneers have to be prepared. So let's talk about the top storyline, the offense. So let's start with the obvious. In order to win these games, your offense has to be ready. And the Bucs had one of the best offenses in all of football last year, 3rd in total yards, 4th in points, only team in the top 5 in both rushing and passing. And this team continues to do great things with Baker Mayfield at the helm. And taking a look at what he did, Baker Mayfield threw for 4,500 yards, 41 touchdowns. That's MVP level stuff right there. And the crazy part is this unit comes back mostly intact. The Bucs even added firepower, first-rounder wideout Emeka Egbuka, another rookie, and Tez Johnson, plus veteran pieces. So you take a look at the Bucs, Emeka, hey, I'm already drinking the creamsicle Kool-Aid on him. I think that this is going to be the guy, and we're going to need to see Emeka Egbuka play a huge role, as it's going to be Evans, and then it's going to be Egbuka. Those are the guys. Listen, out of the frying pan, into the fire. But if you listen to Baker Mayfield, he's already got the stuff. Emeka has already got the stuff. That is why the Buccaneers went out and selected him in the draft, even though there were a lot of people that thought they should go in a different direction. But, and it is a big but, they won't be at full strength on Sunday. Tristan Wirfs not expected to play. Godwin still rehabbing. Jalen McMillan out long-term with a neck injury. So this is not, the Bucs the way we had them sketched out. For the most part, I think that we all knew that Chris Godwin was not going to be in the mix. At least to start the season, but we did expect to have McMillan in there, and Tristan Wirfs was a curveball thrown at the Bucs. Now, so right away, Charlie Heck slides into left tackle, and Egbuka, as a rookie, is getting thrown straight into the fire. This is going to be his moment to just, make him a well-known player in the NFL. That I think that there's probably a lot of people that aren't too familiar with a guy with a name that was hard to say at first, Emeka Egbuka, some people, Emeka Egbuka. I heard it all to start out there, that this is going to be a household name, not only with Tampa fans, but I think with the NFL at large. Now, the good news is Tampa Bay is still deep. That's the good thing, is that they had an abundance of wealth at the wide receiver position and also at the running back position. Some people said, well, they have too many players. Well, we know that injuries are a thing in the NFL season. So the good thing is that the Bucs armed up and they have some good options. So like I said, the good news, the Bucs are deep. Baker's proven he can win with different receivers. We saw that last year. In Kansas City, when Evans, Godwin, and McMillan all missed time, he still moved the ball. But you don't want to test the depth this early in the season. But it doesn't really matter, does it? It is what it is. And this is the best that the Bucs have. And, you take a look at it, it could be a lot worse. It could have been a lot worse. That we remember that Baker Mayfield had that hand contusion, which, right off the bat didn't sound too serious, but it was serious enough for the Bucs to go out and acquire Teddy Bridgewater, that they showed Kyle Trask the door and they pushed all their chips in what is perceived the best option as a backup. So that's the position that the Bucs are in, and it's, not a whole lot different than a lot of other teams around the NFL that go through the same thing. But the Buccaneers will be put to test in a hurry to see how this young talent can fare. But, they still got a lot of veterans in place. I expect this team to hit the ground running, and I am excited for football to be back. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about, can the pass rush get past Penix? I'll discuss straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of the Bucs Report podcast, part of the Bucs Report podcast network, also simulcast on the Bucs Minutecast. So let's dive into it. Is that the Bucs are going to be facing a different QB this time around. We remember last season, it was Cousins in there, that the Falcons weren't afraid of picking up the snow globe and shaking it all around to get a different look, as that is a team that I think is desperately trying to get back in the mix and try to prove a lot of the insiders are wrong as well. So let's dive into that in the next segment here, talking about can the pass rush get to Penix? Atlanta isn't rolling with Kirk Cousins anymore. He was the guy, remember, that was going to be the guy that made all the difference in the world for the Falcons. As it turns out, it worked pretty well against the Bucs, but all things considered, they pushed their chips in on Michael Penix Jr., the rookie they drafted 8th overall, lefty quarterback, big arm, lots of mobility. And remember, Cousins, who's not exactly mobile, threw for over 700 yards in 2 games against Tampa last year. So again, it's not going to be an easy thing, right? And I don't think that anyone really thought that Atlanta was going to be an easy opponent, but I think with Penix in the mix, I think it is not going to be an easy out for the Bucs. So now the Bucs are going to have to get more home with the pass rush. They tied for sixth in sacks last season with 46, but most of that came from the interior. Vita, Kalijah Kancey, monsters out there, but the edge, that's where they wanted more juice. And that's why they went out and addressed it, at least ostensibly. Haason Reddick, double-digit sacks 4 straight years. That's why he's here. Make no mistake about it, to disrupt plays like this. And then, you've got guys like Yaya Diaby, who showed flashes but needs to finish more. If Tampa can pressure Penix with just 4 guys, that opens everything up. If not, the secondary might be in for a long day. And, I think that the Buccaneers are definitely going to, have to pour over the film. And, the film isn't, actually going to help them too much in that regard, just because of Penix in there, that, I think that they're probably going to adjust, the Falcons, that is, but we don't want to have the Bucs face the same fate as they did last year. And we're going to need to see the players step up, Haason Reddick, in particular. That's why they brought him in here. Do your work. And that's what we're hoping for. All right, let's next pivot to special teams and kickoff changes, because oftentimes that's what it comes down to. How many times have you seen a Bucs game? How many times have you seen an NFL game where it's the guys like Chase McLaughlin, what he did for the Bucs last year with, games won by a field goal or an extra point, those kind of things, that it's not about all, Baker Mayfield and, the Bucs, it's also about guys like Chase McLaughlin, for example, and Riley Dixon. Those guys can also be game changers as well. And, it was a bit of a turnstile before Chase McLaughlin, but I'm glad that they took care of that position. And also Riley Dixon as well, that I feel confident. Oftentimes, and I've seen that with different teams throughout the years, whether it's the Buccaneers or any teams that, they didn't have any faith that, they're going to get a field goal, that the guy's kicking left, he's kicking right, that he just can't do it. I'm confident 9 times out of 10 and darn near 10 times out of 10 when Chase is out there. So the NFL changed the kickoff rules again last year. Tampa Bay barely felt the impact. They still had a ton of touchbacks, but now the rule tweak basically forces more returns. And you know what? The Bucs aren't hiding it. Chase McLaughlin's handling kickoffs instead of punter Riley Dixon, which tells you they're going to be covering more kicks. So that third phase of the game, right coverage units, tackling in space, this is where you can win or lose field positions. So now you take a look at the new special teams coordinator. He likes guys, says he's confident. We'll see Sunday if the confidence pays off. Interesting things. Like I say, oftentimes when it comes to those kind of things and rule changes, sometimes it's not just a plug and play. Sometimes there is a bit of a learning curve. We hope that the Buccaneers are prepared. Next, we're going to talk about the NFC South check. So the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have won 4 straight, but Atlanta is breathing down their neck. The Saints, unproven quarterback situation. Carolina still waiting for Bryce Young to fully pop. But the one thing that I want to make abundantly clear here is complacency and underestimating your opponent. Well, that can be deadly. I think that the Buccaneers, they're not prone to do that, as they are a team that plays with a chip squarely on their shoulders, as they are always the underdogs. And that whole thing is being fed by Baker Mayfield, who is also a guy that has a chip on his shoulder. As I still think wants to prove to the NFL that he is still the quarterback that we have seen from last year, that, he was a bit of a journeyman that hop, skipped, and jumped around the NFL, but he solidified his place within the Buccaneers. So I think that the Buccaneers need to not underestimate their opponents, that there are teams like the Saints, Carolina, these kind of guys, or these kind of teams rather, that want to play spoiler for the Bucs. So really, week 1 is going to be a litmus test. Like I said, Atlanta's got weapons in Robinson, Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Penix throwing it around. Plus, they invested heavy in the pass rush with Walker and Pierce Jr. But the Bucs are still the champs until someone takes it from them. But this game could be a preview of how tight this division really is. And, it's one of the things that when we observed through the preseason and, there were some cuts made, there was a lot of questions about why this player and that player was cut. We talk about the quarterback position, why the Buccaneers pushed all their chips in on Teddy Bridgewater as the backup over the unproven commodity and Kyle Trask. You're starting to see why now, is that teams around the NFC South, they armed up, right, in a lot of ways. And I think they want to address the situation in the room, and that is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that they don't want to have the Buccaneers just sailing away with it one other year. And they're getting it done, under Todd Bowles, another guy that you got to think has a chip on his shoulder, that every year he's on the hot seat. He's on the hot seat. Is this going to be it for Todd Bowles? That I think that has served the Bucs rather well year over year over year. But like I say, the Buccaneers do not want to underestimate their opponents, and it all starts in week 1 against Atlanta on Sunday. All right, so coming up here after the break, we'll talk about Baker on receiver injuries and how he's still pretty happy with the receiver room. I'll discuss straight ahead. All right, welcome back into this edition of the Bucs Report, part of the Bucs Report podcast, simulcast on the Bucs Minutecast feed. So let's welcome back in here and talk about Baker Mayfield and his comfort level with the receivers. As a quarterback, you like to have as many weapons at your disposal as possible, right? It's advantageous that, if this guy's not working, you can go to option A or B. And the Bucs for so many years had the best 1-2 punch in Evans and Godwin. Still do, but we know that Godwin's a bit out. And, even down the depth chart, we saw Jalen McMillan just really take it to the next level last season, right? Because Godwin got injured, that he needed to step forward and take on a bigger role. So now that's kind of the lay of the land there, right? That plus you added Emeka Egbuka, and you go down the depth chart there, that we're really going to need to see the big guys perform. But how through it all, Baker Mayfield feels confident. So let's dive into that in the next segment here and talk about the offense. Baker Mayfield talked this week about the injuries and called it, oddly enough, the silver lining. And why is that? Well, he said, that sounds weird. I mean, first of all, before I get into it, that sounds weird. Silver lining is losing Godwin and McMillan. But here's the point. Last year when guys went down, others stepped up. Sterling Shepard, even rookies, Ryan Miller, and even rookies like Cam Johnson got some reps. So you ultimately got a chance to see what some of these depth guys have in the tank. So now, it stinks not to have Godwin week 1, but those other guys aren't deer in the headlights either. They've played meaningful snaps already, and albeit, preseason snaps. You take a look at Egbuka, going to be shiny new toy. Tez Johnson's that shifty playmaker who can create after the catch, but Baker trusts the whole room. And that's not something that you oftentimes hear, right? That oftentimes, and the quarterback before, Tom Brady had his favorites. And if you drop the ball, chances are he's not going to go back to you right away. You even saw that with Evans at certain points with Brady there. So I think that, when you take a look at Baker Mayfield, he's got a lot of weapons at his disposal. And the fact that he has trust that these players can deliver, I think is going to bode well for the team this season. And look, he's right. That's what makes this sport great. You've got to elevate who's ever out there. And that is what the Buccaneers are going to have to do. It's the next man up. I mean, would the Bucs prefer to be Godwin out there? Would they prefer to have McMillan out there? Of course, but it is what it is. And it's a good thing that they have the needed depth. All right, let's next pivot to and talk week 1 depth charts. On offense, Emeka Egbuka is starting right away. Bucky Irving listed as RB1 over Rachaad White. Of course, tight ends unchanged. Cade Otton still tight end number 1. Now, that's an interesting battle as well, that it's not even a battle anymore with Bucky Irving as he is the clear running back number 1. It is a change over last year. But when Bucky was given his opportunity last season and what we saw from him in the preseason, there's no mistake in it. Rachaad White is good, but for me, it's clear cut. Bucky Irving, he has more of those violent, jumps. He can find holes a lot easier than Rachaad White can. But at the end of the day, like I said, it's an abundance of wealth. Having Bucky and Rachaad White is good. Now the O-line, 8 total cap, but that's Wirfs out. Charlie Heck steps in, and Benjamin Chukwuma, undrafted rookie, could be a swing option. Now, defensively, Servache Dennis gets his first week 1 start at inside linebacker. Tyke Smith takes over at strong safety. And, of course, Haason Reddick opposite Yaya Diaby on the edge. Specialist Raleigh Dixon at punter. Chase McLaughlin doing kickoffs and field goals. Cameron Johnson at punt returner. Though don't be shocked if Tez Johnson sneaks in there as well. It's a deep roster, young with a blend of vets and rookies, and once Wirfs and Godwin are back, even scarier. So, the thing of it is for the Bucs, if they can at least weather the storm right out of the gate, this team is only going to get better. At some point, Godwin's going to be back. Wirfs is going to be back. McMillan is a bit further out. We don't know exactly when he's going to be back. But, I think, like I said, if the Buccaneers can weather the storm through the first, few to handful games there, I think that they're going to be in a better position. The other big news surrounding the Buccaneers is Luke Goedeke extension. Right tackle Luke Goedeke just signed a 4-year, $90 million extension, $50 million guaranteed. And look, I think it's safe to say he earned it, came in as second-round pick, struggled at guard his rookie year, moved back to his natural right tackle spot, and boom, flourished. Putting your aces in their places, and I think ultimately what has seen Luke Goedeke take his career to the next level. He and Wirfs, that's one of the best tackle duos in football, and the chemistry between those two, it's real. Goedeke even said, hey, we talked about playing 10 plus years together. I think the Bucs are all in, right? I mean, if you got a good 1-2 punch, why not go with it? That is the type of continuity the Bucs want up front, and that's how you protect Baker. That's how you keep the run game rolling. And the one thing to circle back to there is if Baker Mayfield feels safe out there, if he doesn't feel under duress, that is going to give him the ability to kind of wait it out and wait for the perfect play to develop. Again, what do we know about Baker? He is a bit prone to having happy feet, but when Wirfs is back and having Goedeke in the mix, that is going to let Baker Mayfield play that much more confidently. All right, so final thoughts here, closing out. Bucs versus Falcons. Division rivals, young quarterbacks versus experienced one, pass rush versus protection, depth being tested right away. Now, this isn't just week one. No, this feels like a tone setter for the NFC South race. If the Bucs can, right what's wronged, and what I'm saying is wronged here is how the Bucs struggled against the Falcons last season. If they can change if they can change the momentum, and I think they're going to be able to do that by picking up a big win to start the season and against a team they struggled with last year, it could definitely cause that positivity momentum snowball to start growing here. Because if Tampa wins, they keep the crown tight on their head. If Atlanta wins, suddenly the division looks wide open, and you start questioning the Bucs like, are the Bucs going to take a step forward? Are they going to take a step back? Or are they going to maintain? Either way, it is going to be a wild ride for the Bucs this season. And, again, it's going to put this team to test right out of the gate, being that they are missing some of their key pieces. I do think they have what it takes to weather the storm. And the one thing I like about Jason Licht is he has the ability to see down the football field a bit. He's not so caught up in the here and now that if he didn't do that, I think that the Buccaneers would have went into the season and it would have been Baker and it would have been Kyle Trask. What makes Jason Licht really great in his job is he's like, I don't trust that so much. I want to have a bit more stability. And it's interesting when you talk about Teddy Bridgewater, a guy who hasn't played in quite a while. He is a guy that has been a bit of a journeyman, if you will, that the faith is there. And they saw enough in the preseason to say, that's the guy, to cut Kyle Trask loose, who was supposed to be the answer. Never really was the answer, but was supposed to be the answer. So it's going to be a test, Bucs fans, to see how this team is going to fare in game one. Like I said there, it is going to be a tone setter. And also the Buccaneers are in a good position to kind of evaluate their future. That Godwin is out of the mix. And, it was going to be Jalen McMillan and Emeka Egbuka, I think two pillars, two big building blocks of the future, I guess you could say, for the Bucs in years to come. But it's going to be this young talent that's stepping up. And I think that you're starting to see Baker Mayfield fully entrenched, right, in this team. And I think that the team trusts him. And like I've said on this show, in a lot of ways, I think that they actually have flourished and played that much better under Baker than they even did under the GOAT. Because I think that he's got the relatability factor. I think Baker Mayfield has, and I think that ultimately that is why you have seen this team play so well. Again, no one that wasn't on your bingo card when Baker came here. Most people, they're like, what are they doing with Baker? There were so many options, and you pick Baker Mayfield. As it has turned out, he has been the perfect fit for this team. I think we need to see the young guys step up. I think that we need to have the veterans show the way. And I think if the Bucs can do that, they can pick up game number 1. I think they can lock down the 5th straight NFC South title. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of the Bucs Report podcast, your go-to weekly source covering your favorite team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers Minicast. And let's hope they can do it. Let's hope the Buccaneers can find a way to pick up a big dub in the first game of the regular season. I'll talk to you guys again next time.